I'm now joined by Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth. She is also an Iraq War veteran and a Purple Heart recipient. Senator, thanks for being on with us today.
Thanks for having me on. This is such an important topic. Thanks for covering it.
Yeah, and I wonder how you're reading this firing of Defense Secretary Mark Esper. Is this, when you look at this, is it a temper tantrum? Is it score settling? Or do you see it as a purposeful handicapping of the Biden administration at the risk of national security? It is extremely odd that a defense secretary is vacated with just 2 months in an administration.
Well, I think it's all of the above, but then I also think it's Trump's attempt to get the ultimate yes men into positions where he can carry out in his last couple of months in office some policies that never would have been able to be carried out before. And I'm scared to know what that would be. I wonder what he's going to do with regards to Turkey, for example. He seems to do whatever Erdogan asks him to do. I'm very, very deeply concerned that we now have a hollowing out of the very top echelons of leadership within the DOD and potentially within the FBI and CIA as well, if rumors are correct.
Yeah, that's right, because you have Chris Wray, who appears to be on the chopping block. Gina Haspel appears very vulnerable at this point in time. Back to the military side of things, are you worried that there could be a precipitous drawdown of troops in Afghanistan? And what are your concerns about what that would look like and what the fallout would be?
I am very concerned about that because it would certainly destabilize the region at a time when we know that our adversaries actually ramp up their attacks on American interests. Understand that there's always been a trend that our adversaries basically prod and poke and try to see what they can get away with within the first year of any president's term in office, and usually within the first few months. For example, the first World Trade Center bombing happened in February of President Clinton's first year, so just a month into office. President Bush, in February of his first year in office, actually had to enforce the no-fly zone because Saddam Hussein was testing to see how far he could get with this new president. President Obama, of course, had to deal with the North Koreans detonating a nuclear test in May. And then, of course, President Bush had 9/11, of course. But then President Obama had that detonation of the nuclear test. And President Trump himself, the Syrians, launched a chemical attack that we had to retaliate against in April. So our enemy used this transition time to see how far they can get away with it. And for Trump to come in and just gut the military and to not participate in the transition really handicaps the Biden administration at a time when America's enemies are targeting us even more so than they usually are.
Look, I know, we've heard a lot of Democrats in Congress who are obviously not impressed with their Republican colleagues, who in big numbers still have not acknowledged the win of Joe Biden. But part of being a politician is sometimes walking a line, and they have a very tricky one to walk, right? Democrats don't have this line to walk. They're trying to figure this out between the president, between right-wing media, between the people who support President Trump. And so they're waiting right now until the president, it appears, is ready to throw in the towel. What do you say to them, knowing that if some of them come out against him, they will ultimately probably lose their jobs? What do you say to them in this waiting game that they're in?
Well, what I say to them is that there is harm in waiting. Some of them have been, I've seen some articles where some of the unnamed Republican leadership have said, well, what's the harm in letting him pout for another couple of weeks? Or what's the harm in letting him have his way? What the harm is on national security. And the last time I checked, we all took an oath of office. We all swore to protect and defend the Constitution. We all swore to serve our country. And you cannot stand by and let this president hollow out our military and put our national security at risk. These are some of the folks on the Republican side of the aisle here in the Senate. These are some of the senators who, claim to be the biggest names in national security and national defense. And yet it is crickets that I hear in that side of the aisle when it comes to the security, stance that we're being put into here that really can hurt our nation and our role in the world, but also it will destabilize the world around us if we don't, for example, let Joe Biden get his national security briefings, his intelligence briefings immediately. If we don't get people into office, into positions who can actually do their jobs immediately as well. It boggles the mind that Republicans would think that President Trump pouting is on par with our own national security.
You and I just touched upon Gina Haspel, the CIA director, a few moments ago. This is just into CNN. We've learned that Haspel was iced out of an intelligence meeting that was taking place today with the president and other officials. I mean, there's very clear reason to fear for her being fired here, perhaps imminently. What will that do to the intelligence community and to the U.S.'s abilities when it comes to this sphere?
Well, it's going to hurt our ability to get intelligence, and President Trump has already hurt that with his term in office, where he has, disclosed classified information, for example, information that our allies have given us. And so now our allies, many of whom are reluctant to share classified information with us. And if President Trump takes action now, if he ices out Gina Haspel, and if he conducts some sort of an action that destabilizes the Middle East, for example, so that the Turkish can come in and grab more territory, then the next president is going to have to deal with trying to get that territory back, or having to deal with a world where we have a very, very negative situation happening in the Middle East or in Africa or anywhere else in the world. This president I don't know whose agenda he's acting on, but the only saving grace in this whole thing is the professionalism and the dedication to the oath of office of our military men and women who would do the best job they possibly can. But they don't have a commander-in-chief that honors their service. I mean, we lost 5 American troops yesterday, and this president who tweets nonstop dozens of times a day hasn't tweeted once acknowledging the loss of those heroes.
No, he hasn't. He hasn't responded to that. We noted that earlier. It's a sort of a stunning omission from him. I want to ask you, while I have you here, your name was on the short list for vice presidential running mate for Joe Biden. You would be a logical choice to have a role in his administration. If the president-elect asks you to serve in his administration, will you say yes?
I would take a long, hard look and gulp down hard, because I love being in the Senate. I really love being in the Senate. But, Brianna, some girls fall for the drummer in the band. I fall for your country needs to serve you line. And I've served at the pleasure of a president before, and that's a great honor. So, of course, I would be honored to serve in the Biden administration. But really, I'm very happy in the Senate. I've got a great job there representing my home state, and I think I can be an ally for him in the Senate just as well as I can in the cabinet.
Okay, but you'd say yes. If he asked you, you would say yes.
Well, it depends on the job, but I certainly would take a long, hard look at it. And it's really about where can I best serve him. I'm on Team Biden 100%. And if Joe Biden, calls me up and says, hey, I think you should be driving convoys, delivering supplies to our troops, and I, would take a long, hard look at doing that.
All right. Senator Duckworth, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.